Okay, good afternoon. Today I'm going to discuss relative clauses, relative pronouns, whatever you call. Actually, these are types of clauses, and then they help identify the noun in the main clause. It can be from things, it can be from people, places, whatever. Okay, so we have relative pronouns. Here, as you can see, they are actually relative clauses are adjectival clauses. They play adjectival roles. They define, they specify, they limit, or restrict, or whatever. Even though the level differs based on defining basic one and non-defining one, whatever. So they use the relative pronouns, like which. Okay, these are relative pronouns commonly used: which, that, whose, and whom. Whenever we use these relative pronouns, as when they are used as a defining relative clause, we do not use comma in case of defining one, restrictive one. Okay, we have subjective, objective, possessive pronouns actually differently. For a subjective pronoun, who, which, that. Who is for person, The man who called you has just arrived. The person, whatever. Which, for things. This is the book which I wanted. That also for things and persons. For persons and things, good. Are you the boy that lives next door? Oh yeah. Oh, the relative pronoun that is less formal than who or which. Okay. Whose is a possessive pronoun. Whose is a possessive pronoun for persons and things. It is a story about a boy whose parents got divorced. Whose parents, okay? Whose, you can see. Whose parents. The river whose bridge is in front of us is called the calm, whatever. Whom is the object of the verb? The man who I met yesterday. Actually, we can get rid of the relative pronoun who. Good. It is very formal when it's compared to that. So, we can leave out the relative pronouns, yes. If the subject in the main clause is different from the subject in the defined relative clause, we leave out the relative pronoun. The student you saw in Oxford is my neighbor. My neighbor. Subject are the student and you. And the bike she borrowed belongs to me. Bike she borrowed. Subjects are, yeah, good. So, think of this. Be careful. If the subject in the main clause and the relative clause is the same, we cannot omit the pronoun. It becomes the subject of the relative pronoun. The driver who took you to school is from York. It is subjective case. So if it is subjectively used in a subjective position, we are not supposed to move, to leave out, to cut out the relative pronoun. Relative pronouns with prepositions. So there are prepositions used with some words. This time, relative pronouns go in line with these expressions. The man I got from. The man whom that I got it from. the man from whom. Okay, relative pronoun plus preposition, preposition plus relative pronoun. That is the form. Non-defined relative clauses. They only describe a preceding noun or pronoun and add some information about them, but do not specify them. The non-defined relative clause must be written with commas. Okay, my father, who is 65 now, still works, still energetic, whatever. Additional. Look to this example as well. I gave it to Peter. We know Peter specifically, who is my close friend. So that's that. The non-defined relative clause are quite formal and are typical of written English. In spoken English, we prefer less formal. More examples. My father, who is 65. My father is 65 now and still works. Their garden, which is near here, looks beautiful. So as such, connective relative clauses do not define or describe the preceding nouns or pronouns. I gave the letter to James, who sent it to London. He passed me the salt, which fell on the floor. Okay, the function of the connective relative clause is different, but the rules are the same. With the non-defined relative clause are the same as with that of the non-defined relative clause. We make them with the pronouns who, whom, whose, which. Write them with the. Remember, we cannot write the defined relative clauses with commas because they change the meaning of a sentence. Compare the following sentence. Read them. And for example, the passengers who fastened their seatbelts survived. Which passengers survived? Only the passengers wearing seatbelts. The passengers who fastened their seatbelts survived. Because all the passengers were wearing their seatbelts, they survived. Good. So, this is that defining and non-defining restrictive and non-restrictive relative clause. Thank you for your attention and keep subscribing. Good. Oh yeah.